And the Rent Guidelines Board will be holding public hearings between now and June to discuss the proposed 16% hikes for rent-stabilized apartments.
It's quite a number right there. Affordable housing will be a major focus of Friday's State of the Borough address for Queens Borough President Donovan Richards, who's joining us this morning in studio to talk about this and more. So, Borough President, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dan and Hazel.
Yes.
In person.
In person.
Yeah.
Good to have you here on the couch, right? So let's talk about this, right? Because there's nearly 1 million rent-stabilized apartments across New York City. This 16% increase would be the highest pretty much ever, and it's quite the number. Where, as we're tackling affordable housing, is this the time to either raise rents and then raise rents by 16%?
Absolutely not. And the rent is too damn high.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know,
Jimmy McMillan.
And it's one of the big focuses, obviously, of the State of the Borough Friday. And I'm proud of what Queens has accomplished over the course of the last 2 years. You know, last year we led in housing production across the city. More than half of housing units produced were in Queens. So we still have a long way to go to ensure that we're building true affordable housing. But this hike is
How do you do it? How do you go about it then? Because the Rent Guidelines Board, they take the public input, but it almost seems like every year they listen to it all and they still go ahead and they vote on it and they approve it. So how do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, the public is going to have to stand up, and I know many of my fellow elected officials share my concerns around this astronomical hike that's being proposed. And we hope the mayor and the Rent Guidelines Board listens to us during a time where we're seeing inflation really increase across the city as well.
Yeah. Something also increasing in the city is crime. I mean, that's not what anybody wants to hear. So what are you doing? Are you working with the NYPD and trying to bring the numbers down in Queens?
Well, the numbers are coming down in Queens. I'm really proud of the work that Queens South is doing. There's still a lot of work that has to be done in Queens North, the 109th precinct. We just got an additional, I think, 22 officers. I know that there will be a new class of graduates today, so we do need to see that. But as we talk about reducing crime, it's also about investments. We need to see more of those investments in after-school programming. We need to see more investments in our schools, and that's something we're going to be talking a lot about in the State of the Borough on Friday. So it's really about, and we're building 2 new community centers in South Queens. So we really want to focus in on a holistic plan to address crime, not simply the NYPD.
Yeah, start at the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had Councilmember Bob Holden on the Sunday Political Show, and he was saying that it goes back to bail reform, and that's an issue with crime. Do you agree? Because this is what's holding up the state budget.
Listen, let me say this. To address crime, you have to deal with it holistically. Everybody likes to put bail reform in one bucket, but when you look at unemployment and look at those communities where unemployment is higher than in other areas, you're going to always have some of these issues. We're spending $500,000 a year to house one detainee on Rikers Island. Imagine if we took that money and put it into housing, we put it into job placement, we put it into healthcare, mental health. That's the way to address crime holistically.
Something also happening all across the city are these e-bike fires. You had earlier this month, a 7-year-old boy and a 19-year-old girl perished in one of those fires. What do you think needs to be done about these lithium-ion batteries?
Well, we need to see more central charging stations, especially in residential buildings. And I know that there is some pending legislation on the federal level. I believe Senator Gillibrand is working on. I know the City Council is also has passed a package of bills as well to deal with the way these batteries are being manufactured. But we need to really see more central charging stations. And when you look at where these fires are happening, they're happening in majority low-income communities, immigrant communities, because these are the communities during the pandemic who could not stay home. These are your delivery workers.
They rely
so we
on
need to make sure that that infrastructure is more centralized across communities.
Yeah. I want to focus right now on the migrant crisis, because a lot of talk is about slashing the budgets around New York City, all because of the amount of money that the migrant crisis is costing, right? So there were some shelters that opened up in Queens last week, some hotels. Does the city, I guess, contact your office before they open it? Are you okay with them being in Queens? And what do you think that the federal government should be doing right now to help with the situation?
I'm in alignment with Mayor Adams. The federal government needs to deliver dollars to New York City if we're going to house thousands. I know Queens saw the largest amount of migrants certainly placed across the city. And Queens has always been a borough that welcomes everybody. More than half of us are born elsewhere, outside of this country, or foreign born. So we will always welcome migrants, and I've had the pleasure of speaking to them. They want to be productive members of society. They want to get to work. We need to see these work authorizations happening. We need President Biden to really move on that immediately.
Do you agree, sorry to interrupt you, do you agree with the words that Mayor Adams used? He called it a failure of the federal government. Some were saying that that was a harsh word to use, a failure of the Biden administration not to send the money.
I don't want to point fingers here because as the son of an immigrant, my father just became a United States citizen 3 years ago. He's always been a productive member of New York City and of Queens. He contributed to the economy. He brought up the borough president of Queens as well. So we always want to welcome those who want to be here, but with that does come the necessity of having the resources to make sure that, one, that they are housed, and then we have to think about the looming housing crisis that we already have in New York City and the many issues that were exacerbated during this pandemic. So really we need the federal government to step up. We do need, and I did see Vice President Kamala Harris on last Thursday, where I mentioned, yes, we need to see more infrastructure money for Queens, but certainly more assistance when it comes from Washington, D.C. to address this crisis as well.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about mass transit. There were a lot of delays over the weekends in Queens. What do you want to see done in the borough to improve that?
Well, the state is now in negotiations on their budget. We need a fully funded MTA. That is the bottom line. You know, I often joke that it's easier to get to Florida by plane than Manhattan by train on some days coming from Queens County. But that's really what needs to happen is we need to see investments in the MTA, especially if we're telling people we want them to come back to work. We want them to get around the city and contribute to the economy. We have to have an efficient mass transit system.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of it all has to do with money, 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 money. And it's always about who you know and the connections you have. So we've been trying to track down, and we want to know if it was you, the person who won the lotto. Oh, it was sold in Ozone Park.
Come on.
So were you the Mega Millions winner that we're searching for?
No, you know, I'm too cheap to gamble. That's just the bottom line. But you know, my birthday was on Easter. My wedding anniversary was on Easter. And I did joke. I said I should go play the lottery. Now I regret not playing it, actually.
It's a big lotto.
Twitter's not real life, I guess.
I know.
Well, hopefully we'll find out who that is.
Yeah, come on. And share with the borough.
Yeah, exactly. Pitch in. We got a lot
I
of things
can't
to
take
get
it
done.
anybody, but certainly make sure.
If it was you, I was going to ask for a loan.
Queens Borough President Donovan Richards, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Queens get the money, we say.
There you go.